Hi, welcome back. I'm with Dr. Jeff Stoker, who is not just a great GP, but you're into lots of things and helping people out understand the mind and all sorts of things. Tell everybody that's watching a little bit about yourself.
I'm a GP. I'm a GP in an area of considerable need. We're in a practice which is an area of deprivation. So we have about 14,000 patients, and those patients are patients
Is that big for an area or small? Or
it's pretty big for practices as they go, and considering that we haven't got enough GPs, we're doing quite well, but we've got a lot of patients with lots of conditions that probably are relevant to what we're going to talk about today. So there's lots of patients with things like obesity, diabetes, and other chronic diseases. My skills are to help those patients in a traditional way, but also some of the behavioural skills to make them change their minds, to make them do the things that they need to do behaviourally to help them, improve their health and their wealth.
So that's kind of give the medication they need for right now, but at the same time try and get them on that first path, that first step back to self-repair.
I think you're exactly right. A lot of it's the information. We live in kind of an information age now, so there's lots of information out there. And it's trying to filter that down for your patients. But once you've got that information, it's not just the knowing, it's the doing. So you've got to get to do the actual doing as well. So it's that change in mindset that you can get, and the patient then starts looking after themselves, and they know what to do. And those two things together can really make a difference in someone's life. So I've got lots of skills when it comes to medicine, FRCS qualifications, MRCGP. I'm an educator, so that I train other doctors. I'm a PGCE in education and medical education. I'm also a master practitioner in neurolinguistic programming, which is a bit of a mouthful. We can come back to that, but it helps people leave behind what's holding them back and helping them change the way they do things. But also once they're there and they realise they want to make those changes, I'm also a master coach to help people coach people out of their problem state and into their solution and where they want to go to. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I do. I'm a family man. I've got a beautiful wife and two beautiful kids. I spend a lot of time running, cycling, exercising, Yeah,
well, you look great.
Well, thank you very much.
I'd be more than happy to come and see you as my GP.
Good. And I think you've got to practice what you preach. If you're passionate about something, I'm passionate about health, and I want to stay healthy, and I don't think I can do that unless I start looking after myself as well. And I love the exercise, I love the nutrition side of things, and I try and give my patients real life examples and information and knowledge of what they can do, and help them coaching how to do that every day. Brilliant. So that's what I do. That's
fantastic. Me. So where should we start? Let's start with I don't know, let's go back to the beginning of time. So Primal's all about saying that evolution's really, really slow. And in the book I quote the fact that one of the reasons probably why our fingers and toes still go crinkly is because evolution, years ago we used to have to grab fish with our hands and things like that. And we don't need that anymore, but evolution takes a long, long time. So let's start earlier on. You were talking about Neanderthal man and things like that. Give me your opinion about evolution and probably why are we today the bodies that we are today, and what lessons can we take from that? Sorry, there's loads of questions here. What can we take from that to in a minute we'll get on to probably the biggest problem in the UK. We're a bit overweight as a nation, and how we cut down the number of cases of obesity. But let's go right back to what are we designed to do as human beings, and how do we get back to that lifestyle?
I'll try not to get too technical, but basically as a human being we are a hunter-gatherer. We are built to survive long winters, and we are built to gorge on carbohydrate and other foods when it's available, to build up in our fat stores, which will last us through the winters. And then when game is there, we're built to sort of run after those four-legged animals and hunt them down and eat them. Basically, we're built to burn fat. We're built to metabolize fat, and we do that because we've got predominancy of slow twitch muscle fiber, and this slow twitch muscle fiber, one of the fuels that can fuel that slow twitch fiber is fat. So we can burn our fat, we can keep going for longer, and we can run down these animals, because we can metabolize aerobically, and we can run them down, and that's how we're pre-designed to do. The trouble is, lifestyle now and society today, it's taken us away from that. So we don't have to, hunt for game to feed ourselves. We actually just need to pick up the phone, or pick up your iPad, pick up your phone and order it, and spend most of our time on the couch.
Yeah,
and that's so there's a problem with what we're genetically.
That progression's gone sadly wrong very quickly, hasn't it? You know, from when our parents used to go and fetch the food from the shops in carrier bags and then walk down the street, so they were getting exercise. Then mum would put it out, she'd cook wholesome food, and then we all started going to restaurants more. That's one thing, but then we stopped going to restaurants, or don't go as often now. Then we get it delivered to home, and now we can even get delivered to home from the chip shop, the Chinese, and the takeaway. So we really have come a long way, haven't we, from hunting it down now to actually just sitting there and waiting for it to be put in front of us.
We're meant to be active. You know, we're meant to be able to run. We're meant to be able to, eat what we catch, and then agriculture hasn't happened, for much more than 2,000 years. So we're hunter-gatherers. We're not having that. We don't have that lifestyle anymore. We're using less and less energy. We're sitting more on the sofa most of the time. And we're just not burning off the calories we consume. And again, the society is so abundant with calories and carbohydrate and the sources of carbohydrate rich food that actually what it's doing is we're fueling ourselves with the things that we're not genetically designed to cope with, and that's causing problems in the country. I think the obesity epidemic, you've got the last figures, I believe, is something like 20%, 27% of the population are obese.
So more than 1 in 4.
And that's huge. I mean, in my practice, we've got at least over 30% of the population are obese and a lot more overweight. We've got 6.5% or more who are diabetics, and these people just cannot handle what they're eating, and that's the problem. Their body is putting it on and storing it, waiting for that big winter that's never going to come.
And Dr. Jeff, how long have you been in the practice?
Been in the practice about 10 years. We took over.
Have you seen that grow then? The number of people. In other words, what percentage? I don't like numbers too much, but are we seeing more and more people coming in with obesity, diabetes than you were at the beginning? As the pattern changing, or?
The worst thing is you got kids coming in. 1 in 3 kids are overweight, which I think is awful. But then you've also got people coming in with obesity and with diabetes earlier. So, an older person may get diabetes later on in their life, but actually what you're getting people who are diabetic earlier on, in the early 20s, and it's certainly not into middle age, before middle age. You've got people with pre-diabetes a lot younger than what you've ever had. And we've got obesity, which is really causing problems with lots of people. And I think, all of these things together, the obesity, the some of these lifestyle diseases, it's going to break the NHS. I'm very proud of the NHS. I love the NHS. It keeps a lot of people well. The trouble is, it cannot cope with some of the things that that are happening to society today.
And if somebody that's watching right now has got diabetes, or knows they're overweight, and it's so hard to break that cycle, the cycle, the carb cycle, the carb coaster we were talking about earlier on today. It's so difficult to make that first step. What's your view on the first step? Should they go out and exercise first, or should the first thing is to understand food or change habits? Or what's the first bit of advice we can give somebody that knows they're overweight and actually is fed up of it and wants to make that change?
Well, first thing is make the decision to do something about it, and actually do something about it. So make that commitment to make a change. If you know you need to make a change, make it. There's lots of information out there. You can go and see a doctor. I think the basics, if I was going to give general advice to most of the population, would be a bit more active. Just get up, do a bit more, go for a walk. You don't have to start exercising, be a bit more active first.
Was it Hippocrates said, walking is a man's best medicine?
I don't know whether that's true, but that's
2,000 years ago,
Very good.
And then there was a bit of research that we were looking at recently, and we had a doctor a couple of days ago saying that literally just 25 minutes to half hour walking a day, they believe might extend life expectancy by up to 7 years.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I can understand that. I think when it comes to diet, we're eating far too much. So the first thing is we're eating too much. And the second thing is, we're probably eating too much in the way of carbohydrate. And there's 3 things we need to do about carbohydrate. We need to think, right, okay, we're eating too much of it. So, and we're eating the wrong type of it, and we're eating it at the wrong time. So, you don't need to go and research the amount of grams of carbs that you're eating a day or anything like that. You just need to eat a little bit less than what you know you shouldn't really be eating. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty simple. We're eating the wrong types of carbohydrates, so we're eating too many sugars. We're eating too many processed food that have hidden carbs and hidden sugars in there. Agreed. But we're also eating too much of the wrong thing. So we think, or have loads of fruit juice, these things are just packed full of sugar and calories. And then you've got, too many potatoes. I mean, there's still good stuff and these things have grown, but if you have too much of anything, it's not a good thing. And then we're eating these things at the wrong time. So we're eating it when we don't need it instead of eating it when we're hungry. Yeah. And we need to listen to our bodies and think, well, I'm going to stop when I'm full. Instead of keeping going. Yeah,
I'll pick on two things there. There was a study recently about the Japanese, and somebody said to me, well, if rice is so full of carbs and that turns into sugar, how come the Japanese overall live a little bit longer and aren't always so fat? I said, because first of all, they tend to have this rule where they stop eating when they're 80% full, whereas certainly in Great Britain, we seem to eat past when our body's telling us that we're full. Yeah. So first of all, they don't eat as much, and that's really, really important, that cutting it down. And while we're also saying, pick up on what Dr. Jeff said then, we're not saying that stop eating fruit. What we're saying is, be careful of the fruit juices, because fruit juices are great if you've mashed it all up and you've got the fibre and you've got the goodness in there, but if you're just squeezing out the juice, you end up almost with a glass of sugar. And go and speak to a dentist about that, because they've got quite a strong view about too many fruit juices and what the acids are doing to the teeth. So still take your fruit, but cut down on those fruit juices for sure.
Yeah, and if you get a big glass of orange juice, you put it in the frying pan, you leave it for a while, you see the sugar that's produced after that.
I've never done that before.
It's worth doing.
Right.
It's a bit worrying.
Yeah.
But you also, if you think about how many grams of sugar, the equivalent in a half pint of orange juice is about, I think it's about like six teaspoons of sugar. It's a huge amount. Now, if you're going to pick the fruit, go out, pick the fruit, squash the fruit, press it and make that juice and eat it, fair enough. But you're not going to do that. You're going to buy it super concentrated, probably with added sugar, and that is a huge sugar hit, even though it's fruit.
Yeah, it's amazing. Talk us through how sugar turns into body fat. There'll be a lot of people watching. I beat this drum all the time about insulin and the process and glycogen, all these things. But tell me, not distinctly, but nice and short, how does carbohydrates, which people think is sugar, and body fat, they think is fat as in meat fat and all that, but how is it that it's carbohydrates and sugar that turns into fat?
Yeah, your body is designed to store energy, because we've come from this situation where there could be a time of famine. So our body will store energy, and we store energy, no matter what we store it as fat. And fat is hugely high in calories, and it's the best, most efficient way to store energy, and that energy has to fuel the body. The thing is with carbohydrates is that they're absorbed quickly into the body. And this is usually sugars, because sugars are absorbed quicker than any other form of carbohydrates, because you can have these kind of long-chained carbohydrates, which will, complex carbs, which take a little bit longer to process. They've still got the calorific value, but they're different than the sugars. The sugars go straight into your system, and your body says, whoa, abundance, this is great. I'm just going to store these things, and your body, the sugar levels go up when you absorb it through the gut. Your insulin level goes up. When your insulin level goes up, the sugars are just directed into your fat cells, into your fat cells, into your liver to produce glycogen, and into your fat cells. And the trouble is if you've got too much, if you've eaten too much, and certainly if you've eaten too much carbohydrate, you will get that big spike of insulin, which will drive everything into your fat cells. And while you've still got that big spike going up, and while your insulin levels are quite high, it's not going to come from there. So you're not going to burn it off, because it's getting pushed in there all the time. I mean, our bodies are pretty good. I mean, if you think about the average person puts on possibly about 2.5 pounds a year. Most of that over Christmas, and we all know why. But the other thing to think about is that if you look at the amount of calories to cause that 2.5 increase per year, and that's a lot if you add it up through life. However, if you think about it, that's only a mouthful of food every day. So your bodies are pretty good. But if you're making your body consume so much carbohydrates and sugars, you will always be putting on weight, and you'll always be putting on too much. And it's not just that extra mouthful that'll give you 2.5 pounds. If you have an extra 200 calories a day with a latte or half a muffin or a couple of slices of toast, that'll be 10-20 pounds by the end of the year. So there's a huge difference, and there's little things you can do can make big differences in your life. And I think the first thing to start doing, going back to your first question, is really we need to cut down on what we eat sensibly, and try not to eat too much.
And back to this thing about carbs, and then we'll move on to fibre in a second, but carbs in terms of sugary carbs, it's important that people start to understand that eventually all carbohydrates turn into sugar. So it doesn't matter whether that's pasta, whether that's rice, whether that's bread, eventually all of these will turn into sugar. And if you've got too much of it, as Dr. Jeff just said, if you've got too much of it, first thing it does, it turns it into glycogen, stores it in the liver, but only around 400 or 500 calories, depending on what size you are. Then a couple of thousand calories it can push into the muscles, but beyond that, it pretty much all ends up as stored body fat unless you're burning it.
Yeah, and you can only store about 400 grams of glycogen in your body. About 120, 150 of that's in the liver. The rest of it's in your muscles. And after that, it goes to fat. There's nowhere else for it to go. And men and women are different. Men tend to have this kind of truncal, visceral fat where you have your fat internal, and women tend to have subcutaneous fat where it's in the skin. And genetically, you're not predisposed to be overweight or underweight. Genetically, it's just where you put the weight. So you see this particularly in people who will carry their weight up here, or down there. It's genetical predisposition is not whether you're fat or slim, because an overweight person is an overweight person and a slim person is a slim person. Genetically, it's where you put it in your body. Men and women are different, and different families are different. So it doesn't run in families. It's where the weight is stored runs in families. The one thing that does run in families is lifestyle. And if you do the wrong thing in your life, that can pass down to the next generation. And you see, overweight parents with overweight kids, and you see a whole generation that's just getting bigger and bigger.
And I'd like to pick up on that, because a lot of people say to me, oh, it's just genetics. And they say that about lots of things, about Alzheimer's, cancer. And there are some genetics, don't get me wrong, but it cannot all be about genetics. Let me give you two examples of that. It can't all be about genetics, because we're 2.5 stone heavier today than the year I was born on average as an adult in the UK. So if it's genetics, then it's going in that direction, so how can it be genetics? And then also like cancer, there might be a little bit of genetics in there, but the cancer rate is going from, it's just off the scale. So if you go onto cancer research website, 1 in 2 adults now alive today will get cancer at some stage in the UK in their life, according to cancer research. Whereas you go back 50 years, 100 years ago, the cases were much, much few and far between. So it cannot be that. I read a book recently, it was great. It said, this is where this one doctor was saying about genetics. He said, treat it like the gun might be loaded. So my mother, bless her, she's got Alzheimer's, my dad's a diabetic. So the gun might be loaded for me with slight slightly more chance of getting it then. So the gun's loaded, but you still need something to pull the trigger. So as long as I don't pull the trigger by myself, then eating all the wrong things and not exercising, I can avoid it by just doing the right thing. So don't because stress is one of the worst killers in the UK. So don't stress about it. If your parents have got certain illnesses, just do something about it to make sure you don't pull the trigger yourself, and therefore eat the right things and exercise.
And some people are more predisposed.
That's the word I was after.
That's the word. is to be able to handle more carbohydrate than others. And some people, genetically.
My wife's there. Really annoys me. She's as skinny as a rake, and she eats whatever she wants. I look at a pizza these days and I put on weight.
Fair enough.
But could that also not just be genetics? I've read that it could be that I've damaged my metabolism over years by treating it so badly and yo-yo dieting up and down so much that apparently every time I do that yo-yo diet that you can damage your metabolism. That means mine isn't as good maybe as my wife's. So a mixture maybe of previous damage and
possibly
genetics.
If you've had a predominantly carbohydrate based diet for a number of years, you will slowly start to overwhelm the pancreas, and it can't produce enough insulin. So you start being pre-diabetic, so your basal sugar levels start going up.
Gotcha.
And when they start going up, you think, oh dear me, maybe you're not feeling that well. You're starting to put on a bit of weight. You've got other things going on in your body as well. Yeah. You might have a lot of sort of free radicals going around. Yeah. You're really just not. It's not good for you. There's a lot more inflammation, and you see people who have combinations of things where you have a thing called metabolic syndrome, but their bodies just aren't happy, and they start to lose the ability to handle the carbohydrate that they're consuming even more and more. The pancreas, the islet cells in the pancreas kind of run out. Yeah. They can't produce any more insulin, or the body's getting that big that they've got this thing called peripheral resistance. So the resistance to the insulin, they've got insulin resistance, so they can't. The insulin they produce doesn't work as well. And what then happens is it just gets worse. Yeah. And it snowballs out of control. And when it snowballs out of control, then you end up being diabetic. You end up with the problem that the diabetes gives you. Not just the diabetes, but it's also all of the other conditions that come from it, the vascular disease and the strokes and the heart attacks and the high blood pressure and the peripheral neuropathy and all of these other things as well.
And it's true, isn't it, that exactly what we've just said there is that a lot of these westernised diseases, because I don't see them with the mass when I'm out there, I don't see Alzheimer's, I don't see cancer, I don't see obesity, I don't see diabetes, etc. But it is true that all these that we've got in the West are kind of interlinked, aren't they? Well, they're not all the same thing, obviously, but they do almost all come hand in hand, and a lot of it stems from what we're eating.
It does. I mean, it's a sorry sight, but if you read the World Health Authority 10 facts on obesity, you'll find some awful facts there. I think more people die in the world today from obesity and from being overweight than actually being underweight and starvation. Oh, and that is the wake up.
Not down to us solving the problems in Africa, because I can tell you we've tried for years and years, but the figures aren't getting that much on the other end of the scale. So it must be this end of the scale of.
Well, there's always two ends to the scale, and unfortunately, the Western diet is not very good for us. There's an abundance of freely available sources of sugar, carbohydrate, calories, and we're eating too much. Yeah. And a third of the population are obese. 1 in 3 kids are overweight or obese. And this is frightening, and this is going to just stack up in lots of ways. In society today, the elephant in the room is the elephant in the room. The overweight person, they're doing really bad things for their health and for their well-being, and especially into the future. Yeah.
So cut down the carbs.
Cut down the carbs.
Start walking. Get outdoors. Smell the fresh air.
Good.
Any other advice? Something that's just trying to make that first step. Something that's gone. Enough is enough. I don't want to be walking around this way. There's a lot of television programs at the moment that are saying, it's going to shorten my lifespan if I don't do something about it. So cut down the carbs, walk a bit more. Anything else?
Yeah, eat good quality food as well. You've got to eat food that's been, it's been grown and not produced. Something that is natural and hasn't been produced in the factory is going to be good for you. Something that's nutrient dense as well, rather than calorie dense, and that's really important. As people think this food must be good for me, but actually is it? It needs to be natural, it needs to have grown, it needs to have all the things in there that your body needs, because a lot of people who are overweight are starving on the inside. They're nutritionally starving. And you measure their vitamin D levels, and you measure the folic acid. You get folate from sort of green vegetables and things like that. These things are really low because they're not eating the right things they should be eating. And it's the same with fat. It's like, don't eat more fat, just eat the right amount of fat. It's not about low carb, high fat. It's about the right amount of fat, but it's also the right fats as well. And I think if you get people to eat the right type of fats, it helps them break down the other type of fats. And I think, if your body, you want to start breaking down the fat in your body, if you're overweight, you really have to think about eating a good quality fats and oils in your diet. So, your rapeseed oil, your olive oils, your fish oils are all good for you. Yeah.
Talk about fish oils. So, get fish oils from fish. We get it from omega-3 tablets. For vegetarians out there, flaxseed oil is
rapeseed oil. I love rapeseed oil, but you've got to get it from a good source. You've got to get it's got to be cold pressed. It's got to look good. It's got to be in a nice bottle. If you start heating oils up, they start cross-linking. You get trans fats. You get all these awful things. So, you've actually got to get good quality food for everything you eat. Doesn't matter whether that's, the carbohydrates, proteins, fats, it's got to be good quality and it's got to be nutrient rich.
Of course, that's one of the problems with carbs overall. They're not normally not very many nutrients and vitamins at all. We need to be looking at your fresh vegetables, your fresh foods, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
In fact, talking about carbohydrates, just before we confuse you, and before anyone goes, isn't fibre a carbohydrate? Fibre is a carbohydrate, but it's a little bit different in that we don't absorb it. Teach us a little bit about
fibre. You get fibre in plant cells. So cellulose. We don't absorb cellulose very well. We cook plants to break down some of these big long chained carbohydrates in a sort of leafy green veg and things like that, because our body doesn't break it down very well. And all of that is fibre, but fibre is quite good for you as well. Okay, it pushes things through your gut, but it also absorbs things as well. So if you have oatmeal and things like that, that will absorb things that you don't need, and certainly can bring down your cholesterol and things like that. So it's good fibre is good for you, and it's good for your bowel, and it's good for your life. And I think a lot of the foods high in fibre that have grown, that are vegetables, they have a lot of slow release carbohydrate that kind of keeps you going, and it keeps you going without that big insulin spike. Because it's not just that insulin spike that you get when you've had sugars. It's kind of like your mood follows it as well. Right. And a big thing about carbohydrate, when you eat something that's sweet, it makes you feel good. And the trouble is, if you're feeling a bit low, quickest thing you can do, have something to eat.
So people reach for a chocolate bar sometimes if they're feeling a bit under the weather or a bit
chocolate bar, digestive biscuits are mine. But it's you can reach for these things, and it takes away all the problems in the world. But only for as long as that mouthful lasts. And that's a problem, because I think if you're on that, the kind of carbohydrate roller coaster, it goes up and down, and so does your mood. And your mood follows that. It follows the insulin spike. So when you've got low blood sugar, you feel awful, then you're eating more, then it goes up again and it goes down, and it's not good for you. It's not good for you. You don't feel good, your energy levels drop. And I think the whole thing when it comes to carbohydrate is we need to think about the carbohydrates we eat probably got to be the slower burning carbohydrates, or the slower absorbed carbohydrates. So that was the right word I was looking for. So if they're slow absorbed, they slowly absorb into your body, and they keep you going for longer. And I think that's really important, and also you get this kind of fibre and the slow burning or the slow absorbing carbohydrate, the complex carbs from the leafy green veg, the stem vegetables, and all of those type of things. You start looking at your potatoes and things like that, they might have a bit of fibre around the outside of a potato, but it's packed full of starchy carbs on the inside as well. So you just have to watch what you're eating. Everything is okay in moderate amounts, I would say, but too much of anything is not a good thing.
Yeah, I was reading the other day, other than maybe fibre, because again it just passes through, I was reading the other day that they reckon that in America, fibre is now at an all-time low in how much we're consuming, or they're consuming in America. And yet, of course, obesity is at all-time high, and there's a lot of theories, and I'd be interested in your view on this, a lot of theories that say if we can consume more fibre, makes us feel fuller, makes us maybe not want to eat so much. Most of it passes through exactly the same way as it came in. So, and also there's a lot of views these days that it's good for getting the microbiome, so almost like a prebiotic. So, the probiotics that we're getting in our live yogurts have to eat off something, and it's like a food for the good, healthy gut bacteria. So it's like fibre. It seems to be almost like an alarm bell going off. We need to get more of it, and probably we're not getting it from the packaged foods and all those other foods, and because we'd probably turned our back a little bit too much on the healthy greens.
Yeah, well, anything that's been processed has been broken down.
Good point.
So you're not going to get that natural fibre unless it's been added. So why not have the original food in the first place? So if it's been processed, it's been treated with heat, it's been broken down, there's probably salt and sugar added. So it's not a natural food. It's just a lump of something that is apparently nutritional, but it's just calories, it's just fat, and you've got to think of that on a macro level. It's not good for you. On a micro level, on a micronutrient level, it's certainly not good for you. And the other thing was, when you start processing things, you get the trans fats. These are like big fats that can't be broken down properly in the body. They just clog up your arteries. Your body can't break them down, tries to break them down. There's inflammation processes going on. They stick on your arteries, and that leads to atheroma and plaques and heart diseases and strokes. Yeah. So we just can't handle a lot of the processed food, and it's got lots of hidden nasty stuff in there. It's designed to make us eat it. It's got exactly the right amounts of fat and sugar to make us think, oh dear me, I'm going to reach for another one. And it smells good, and when you smell something, it goes straight up to the brain. It bypasses all of your kind of the good habits, and it smells good. You walk into a supermarket, why do they bake bread?
Put that right near the counter. Right near the front,
it's because it smells good. You go into a coffee shop, there's the muffins there as well. People, we've just been tempted everywhere we go to eat more. Because it's such a big industry. And I think when we've got the society of abundance and there's just too much out there, and we have to have the right habits, otherwise we go wrong. And most of the population are going wrong. And we know that, we've got the evidence.
So we'll get off fibre in a second, but you can buy fibre supplements, there's lots of them out there, but natural fibre, where can we find natural fibre? What sort of food types are we looking at?
Fruit and vegetables. Fruit and vegetables, especially the vegetables. They're the best place to go for fibre. You can get fibre given. We've got these kind of fibre gel sachets and ispigula husks and things that you can get from your doctor. But at the end of the day, you don't need those. You just need to eat a bit more in the way of vegetables. Bread. If you're going to have bread, make sure it's wholemeal. Just little changes that you can make and have a big difference. Don't eat the stuff that's really, really processed, because there's no fibre in it, or it's been broken down, or the fibre's been taken out. Because they take it out, because things get absorbed quicker, so you get the sugar hit, so your body says, let's eat more. So I think you've got to understand it's just natural fruit, vegetables, good quality food, you'll get your fibre from those.
And of course, in Great Britain, we're coming out of the EU at some stage. Yep. Maybe that means we'll have a bit more access, do you think, to local food? Do you think that, do you prescribe to, I prescribe to, which is where you can, as long as you can afford it, try and eat local produce where you can afford it and find it, go organic, try and go natural, local, support that community, and hopefully maybe coming out of the EU, that might be one of the few benefits that we get.
Yeah, my cousin's a farmer. If he's got sheep on his farm, he'll know which field that sheep has been in. And he'll know the name of the sheep. He can probably remember delivering it when it was a lamb. So you know what's on your table. So if you could find a good local product, buy it, eat it, and then have a look around, find out what else is local, because it's a lot better than the stuff that has been produced. And also the stuff that's been produced has been transported as well. So we're eating vegetables that have been transported from Egypt, because that's where the transport lines are. We're not eating the vegetables and the fruit from this country, we're just down the road. So I think there's a problem there. We've got it wrong. It's all about mass production, it's all about transport, and it's about bringing things from elsewhere because it's the cheapest, not locally because it's the best.
Yeah, I'm smiling because we have a pub near where I live called the Lazy Cow, and I didn't realise what that meant at first. So why is it called the Lazy Cow? And they were saying, look, when you buy beef, the best beef is from a lazy cow. So I still don't understand. They said, Steve, you're into all this medical stuff, you've got a hobby and all that, and it's obvious, isn't it? A stressed cow is going to be like that before, it's been in that factory shed and it's been stressed all its life, it's all stressed. The best meat you can have is from a lazy cow. And that, back to, they should be out there grazing where they should be grazing, it should be local, support the local family farmer where you can. And not only are you supporting him, it's supporting you, because not only are you what you eat, you are what you eats. You with me? So therefore make sure it's where you can, organic, and especially with cows over maybe some other meat forms, because we need them to be eating grass, and that's what they're designed to eat.
Yeah. I mean, the Americans got this grass-fed beef. Well, actually, we should have all our beef grass-fed. That's what cows eat. Why do we kind of have to have something special because it's not been force-fed with grains and shot full of steroids? We just want good natural food that's been grown locally in our own country on the soil and eating grass. I mean, that's great. I mean, that's how beef should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Natural and local. And tell me about Born to Run. Let's pick up on.
We're natural, hunter-gatherers, and I think we mentioned this. We're we're built to be able to run, and I think, a lot of us don't run now, and I'm a runner. I like running, I like cycling, I like swimming, I like that kind of exercise. Genetically, we are these hunter-gatherers, and we can run down a four-legged animal because we can, that's what we do. We burn fat. We can, at a lower level of energy expenditure, we can burn fat. So when we burn that fat, we can fuel our mitochondria, which are packed full in our muscle cells, which are the type 1 muscle cells, which are slow twitch cells, which means we can keep going, burning fat for a long, long time, unlike other mammals and unlike other animals. So we're meant to be those kind of runners, those hunter-gatherers. We can go long distances. The trouble is we're just not doing it anymore, and I think that's the problem. Our lifestyle that we're genetically designed to do and to have, and we're just not doing it.
Yeah. Get out. If you're doing no exercise, please don't start trying to run. You're going to do all sorts of damage. If you're not getting exercise at the moment, get out. Just start walking. And then beyond that, you can look at other forms of exercise, but find something that you can get into that you really enjoy. It might be that you never go jogging, but it might be that you like sprinting eventually. But that doesn't have to be sprinting on your knees and running. That could be on a cycle, that could be on a rowing machine. But find something that you enjoy, because the key thing is get moving. So get out, get moving, get walking, get exercising. But doesn't mean straight away you've got to go and do something that's beyond, that's too many people, I think, just first thing they do is go, I've heard I've got to go to the gym. They go to the gym, pull a muscle the first time, get injured, and then never go back again. So start slowly, but do start. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just being more active. It's got to start with activity levels, and you've got to build it up. And you've got to take advice if you've been ill, if you've been injured, if you're on medication, you go and see your doctor. I'm going to say that because I'm a doctor, but it's true. And you have to build it up. You have to build up that slow base, that slow fat burning base. You build up your metabolism, you get used to running again, you get used to exercise. Every time you exercise, your muscles stretch, they soak up that glycogen, and they soak up the glucose and store it as glycogen, and it's there trapped in your muscles. It doesn't go anywhere else. It doesn't go here, it doesn't go there, it stays in your muscles. If you can train your muscles to soak up all of that excess, you're doing a good thing. And people are just not active enough. Their muscles are resistant to soaking up the fuel that's around in their body, and it goes to the fat cells instead.
So I think we're going to come to a bit of a wrap up now. So Dr. Jeff, if somebody's coming to you and they're not yet diabetic, there's no yet sort of history maybe of heart disease, but they just know that they want to make some improvements to preventative rather than curative. So they've maybe just had a baby or recently and they haven't yet sort of getting back into shape, or maybe they've, I don't know, been watching too many box sets. I got there a few years ago, watched a box set and I really enjoyed it, but I went, no, stop. But maybe they've been on the couch too long and now they know it's time to do something. What's the first few things we can do preventative to make sure that we're not, drawing that line in the GP surgery?
Yeah, plan, what you're going to eat that week. There's loads of books out there, there's lots of information out there. Buy the good things from the supermarket, the fruit, the vegetables, the stuff that is good for you. Stay away from the stuff that's packed full of sugar. Open up your fridge and have a look in there, and and have another look in there and really think about those things. Don't sit on the couch. Get moving. Get out, do some exercise. It's good for you.
But actually, one thing we haven't touched on before we summarise, and I want to touch on it because it's my favourite subject at the moment: microbiome and the healthy gut bacteria. Have we gone too sterile these days? Are we taking too many antibiotics? Therefore, we're killing off the good guys as well as obviously there's bad bacteria, but recent reports now suggesting that we're only 10% human. There's 90% of us that is bacteria, and there's good and there's bad. What's your opinion on the microbiome and where we're at as a race, certainly here in the UK, in quite a sterile environment?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes it's too sterile because if you look at kids who are exposed to more things when they're younger, there's less instances of things like eczema and asthma and the allergies. And I think, is it the biome that's causing the problem, and the fact that we've got the wrong biome, or is it the fact that we're eating the wrong food that's causing the wrong biome? So I think it's all linked, and it's a bit of a chicken and egg.
No, that's great.
And I think it's not one thing. It's the fact that our biome is wrong, and our gut biome, the bacteria inside us aren't good bacteria because we're probably eating the wrong things. And unfortunately, we're not then breaking things down, we're not releasing the micronutrients, and we're starting to put on weight, because it does have an effect on the body. I'm not too sure what that effect is, but there must be some effect somewhere, and there's been lots of good research out there that says, this gut biome, these people are obese, and this gut biome, which is totally different, these people aren't. But I can't work out whether it's chicken and egg, whether it's the bad diet that causes the bad biome, or whether it's the biome that's helping you. And I think there's certainly something there. I'm not too sure about where I stand on that.
Yeah. There's a lot of people suggesting, I certainly believe it, that there's certain types of bacteria that feed on sugar. There was a Huffington Post put an article out recently that said some of the sugar plantations, not so much the plantation, but the processing rooms where they're processing it, there's one called Firmicutes that love the sugar so much that they're having massive problems in the rooms where they're processing the sugar, because this one bacteria is kind of taken over. So therefore you power that back down to the gut. If you're eating too many carbs, and this one bacteria love to extract as much energy out of carbs as they can. There's even a strain of thought now that goes even further that says, because they feed off the carbs, they can almost send signals to the brain to ship in more carbs. So it's a fascinating area that I think only through the next few years that we'll learn more and more.
Yeah, and there's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. The good thing would be to probably have a lot of good mixed bacteria in your biome, in your gut. And that's probably going to give you a lot of resistance to other things that come along. Bad bacteria comes along, but you've got this really healthy biome. It may not take a grip. It may not make you sick. So I think it's worth having that good gut biome as well. Now, you can go a bit far. There's a lot of these feces transplants and things like that. But I've got no idea about those things. Certainly not for me.
I'd take my yogurt and a probiotic, I think, rather than that. But they're doing it, aren't they?
I have a probiotic every day, but I don't go the other way. Yeah, I think that's probably a bit too much for now. Yeah. But I think the probiotic is good for you. There's lots of things that a probiotic will do, and I think if you're unwell and you've had something wrong and you've had some antibiotics, you're going to send things off kilter. Millions and millions and millions of bacteria in us. In fact, I think I read somewhere that there's probably more bacteria in our cells, not on our bodies, than actually we have cells in our bodies. It's huge. It's huge. 9 to 1. Yeah, but you just told me. But it's huge. It's meant to be there. We just got to make sure that part of us is healthy as well. Yeah,
and of course, live bacteria. When we were, you're a bit younger than me, but I remember growing up, Mum used to pickle her own jars of pickles, jars of cabbage, and all that fermented food. And these days you find it really, unless you go looking for it in supermarkets, you kind of find it hard to find fermented food. And we know, that's probably why we didn't have this imbalance 50, 60 years ago that we've got today. So it kind of, everything's pointing towards too much carbs, not maybe the right microbiome. We're not exercising like we used to exercising. There's probably this half a dozen things that if we can get right, we can get back on the right path. And we've got to get back on the right path as a country, because like you say, it's putting so much stress on the NHS.
Yeah, and the diabetes and the weight problems, and especially the diabetes, that's huge. I mean, 6% of my practice population are diabetic. 30% are overweight. I'll keep saying that. It's a time bomb. Those overweight people are probably predisposed to then being pre-diabetic and then diabetic, and actually you can stop it when they're pre-diabetic. And there's a big national scheme now about pre-diabetes and training people and giving them expert life coaching to try and stop them developing the diabetes and going fully into that awful disease. And when people are diabetic, they've got to start doing the right things for themselves. Medicine is not going to be the big answer. It's about lifestyle and it's about medicine as well.
Look, it's been an absolutely pleasure seeing you. I know you're going to have a book out at some stage because you've got so many anecdotes, you've got so many stories. Look out for his book. Follow. You've got. I guess you're on all the social medias and all that. And you've got your website and. Yeah, we've got your little name coming on the bottom of the screen, so on a little graphic here. So follow you. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we hope that in 10 years from now your practice, it's something else. Well, let's hope there's not something else, but it's not all about people. I think the message is slowly getting through. We've got to cut down our weight, we've got to cut down those carbs, we've got to get out and exercise more, and hopefully that won't be the main cause of problems moving forward.